How many people have some familiarity with the Agile Coaching Institute? Okay. So for the rest of you, Lyssa and I co-founded the Agile Coaching Institute in 2010, so that was about 5.5 years ago. And we did it because Lyssa's book, Coaching Agile Teams, was about to come out, and we thought that she started out thinking that there was going to be a lot of stuff to do, that it was going to, really catalyze something.
Yeah.
And I think at that time she thought it was going to catalyze a course or two. She had two in mind. And that was true, but since then we've developed about 6 or 7 offerings. And we've been guided by wanting to bring into the Agile coaching world the kind of discipline and professionalism that's profound in the professional coaching world. We're both trained and certified as professional coaches, and they're really serious. When they say certification, they don't mean take a test.
Yeah, they mean go on a 10-month program after 15 days of in-classroom training, and in that 10-month program, have your recordings of you actually coaching assessed against a known standard, a known set of competencies. It's the first thing I ever failed in my life. At first. I finally did pass.
Thank goodness. So we wanted to add professionalism to what we saw as an emerging profession of Agile coaching, being a Scrum Master, being an iteration manager. And we've done a lot of work, and we've been, I think, as judged by other people at least, quite successful in doing that. And it's time for us to turn our attention a little bit to pivot, not completely, but to move into helping organizations do this. So we're moving into more of a consulting role, as well as Agile Coaching Institute and the training. And
what we've seen over the last 5 years is that organizations that started with Agile 2, 3, 5, 6 years ago, somehow leadership is saying, the transformation is over, the consultants are leaving the building, good luck with that. Is that happening here? Yeah, it's happening in the US for sure, yeah? And so what we've always been in this for is Agile to be a sustainable change. Like to not be the latest thing that we do, but something that really pulls us all forward and lives in organizations long after we're gone, long after the consultants have left the building. And so for that to happen, we need to build some kind of internal capabilities, some internal excellence with Agile.
So that's what we want to talk to you tonight, is that part of, we think about, we'll talk to you about this, that there's 4 big pillars that create sustainable organizational agility. And Agile coaching, we think, is one of them. And we'll tell you why that is. There's 3 more. We're not going to talk about those. We're only going to talk about a piece of Agile coaching capability development. But that's what this talk is about. It's not just about how to be an Agile coach particularly, but what does it take for an organization to have that as a capability inside of it? Because Agile coaching is a model for leadership of the 21st century. That's what it is. That's why it's so important.
Cool.
So you're ready to?
Yeah.
Are we on the right plane?
Are we on the right plane? Okay. All right.
Yeah?
Good. So let us start by saying what we're coming from.
Can we see who they are a little?
Oh, sure. That's a good idea.
We want to do that first.
Yeah. So
Who are you? Who are you people?
Yeah. Well, so let's talk about what kind of roles you hold. Who holds a role where they're somehow responsible or passionate about the development of Agile coaching inside of your organization? So a good number of you, yeah?
And how many of you are Agile coaches?
And this can be overlapping, obviously, right?
So
How many of you are
almost all.
consultants that have been coming into organizations for a while and trying to help with the Agile change?
And you want to get out and go to a new client, is that right?
Well, or at the very least, you want to reverse the trend that Simon talked about, which is you do this great work and then you leave and then you're at the pub 6 months later and you run into someone from that organization, they're like, oh my gosh, we went totally backwards. Yeah, because that's kind of disheartening.
How about, do we have some Agile change champions besides coaches, like somebody that's managerially or organizationally in charge of the transformation? We have people like that?
So about 5, 6 of you.
Okay.
Yeah, great. Good, thanks for letting us know.
How about what other roles or kind
What
of
did we not
interests do we
cover?
have out there?
Good.
Technical.
Yeah.
Technical
On the
team?
technical side? Yeah.
Okay.
Bless you, bless you.
I'm living in the Agile system, but I'm a software developer with interest
Developer.
in Agile, but I have I don't have any role in there.
Okay.
Good.
Yeah, I'm helping shape Agile.
Yeah, yeah. You
Okay.
care about it, it sounds like. Yeah.
I do a combination of agile coaching, but also I do sort of what I call kind of, I think you were talking about ICF type, purist coaching.
Pure coaching, pure professional
Okay.
coaching. Yeah, great, 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 great.
Ops engineering manager, evangelist, DevOps in the organization.
DevOps manager, this guy
Okay.
says. Aren't you glad he's here?
Engineering manager.
Engineering
DevOps
manager. Yeah, great. Good, good, good. Thanks for letting us know. We want to make sure we talk to you, and there's lots of different ways we can do this, so that's really helpful. So let's step back from the microscope we've been looking through for a moment and go really wide scope for a moment. Because what's happening is that we're all part of this really huge change on the planet, the whole planet. The whole planet is moving from the conception of organizations as machines. You know, as machines that we can perfect and run in perpetuity the same way, creating the same outputs. We're moving from that concept or conceptualization of organizations to something that is far more confounding. The concept that organizations are perhaps living systems. They're not easy to understand.
Now that's the cutting edge. That's not the way your managers probably talk.
No.
I guess.
No.
Your managers talk about we're re-engineering this organization.
Yes.
We're making it an assembly line, a factory.
Yeah.
We are going to, I don't know, we're going to optimize its performance. That's not exactly what you do with a living system, is optimize its performance.
In fact, the thought of managing something, an ecosystem like a rainforest, the thought of managing that is kind of silly.
So
Naive.
in that machine-like world, it makes sense to predict things and control them. That makes
Right?
sense, actually.
Okay? Because the machine is actually quite predictable.
And if you have enough analysis and enough engineering force and IQ, you can figure that out.
Yeah.
It's complicated versus complex. Complicated is a Ferrari engine. And we actually had somebody in our class that we asked this, anybody here able to disassemble and reassemble a Ferrari engine? And to our surprise, we had 2 people in one class.
Right.
And they were fairly credible. We didn't ask them to do it, but
Right.
You can believe that somebody is able to do that, right? Probably not you, certainly
But
not
somewhat.
me.
So it's a very kind of interesting and a hard problem, but it's only complicated. There are people in the world who can create a repeatable process to disassemble and reassemble a Ferrari engine.
Predict and control, smart management paradigm.
Yeah.
But in a world of rainforests, where organizations are becoming more like that, they haven't acknowledged that yet, but they're becoming more like that, that paradigm doesn't make sense anymore. That's more of a sense and then respond management paradigm. That's a new part of the management literature, is how could we sense what's going on and respond to it? We're not under control of it.
No. And in fact, your organizations are reeling from the fast pace of change and the complexity in the world around them. Because things happen to your organization all the time that the predict and control method can't keep up with. Right? So think about it. Agile itself is an emergent response to a complex world. Right? It's a way of us harnessing all this change that comes at us all the time for good, if we use it well.
And almost everybody agrees that you need to use Agile as a software development methodology in the software domain. There's pretty few laggards out there at this point. It's been, we've way crossed the chasm a long time ago about that, right? But do you do budgeting in a old-fashioned sense? I
Like
bet
once
you
a
do.
year. Yeah,
Right?
probably.
Do you do
right?
performance management like we did it 50 years ago? like Jack Welch taught people to? Probably. So not everything is caught up. Yeah?
Yeah. So what we're going to do is talk with you, stay in this broad brush stroke for a moment, and talk with you about the arrow of evolution of human beings, organizations, and whole societies. Because that's an important backdrop for understanding how we look at the organizational change needed to make Agile sustainable. And then we're going to be going, as Michael said, drilling into this one piece of like, how do we actually like put rubber on the road for creating an Agile coaching capability as one essential part for organizational Agile. Yeah. So that's where we're headed. Good.
So we're loading you up with context first.
We're loading you up. Yep. So one of the worst things we could do when we're helping an organization create their Agile coaching capability is come in with a formula or a simple diagram on one page that says, if you do this, then Agile will be successful. Right? Because the organization where it is and the change that's trying to happen, those are essential pieces of information for figuring out what's the Agile coaching capability that's going to pace this organization. Just be one step ahead of where it is, not 100 steps ahead of where it is. So
the problem is that if you're attracted to Agile, you're quite a bit ahead of where your organizations are. Is that right?
You feel that? You feel the pain of that?
You're way on the cutting edge, and they're back there. You're a scout, and scouts get killed sometimes because you're out there by yourself. Okay.
Right. Which is why communities are so important, right? Good. So let us give you. We're going to cruise through some very deep material that could be a master's degree in itself. We're going to cruise through it in about 5 minutes, just to give you some context for where we're headed.
Kindergarten version.
Yep.
Do you use that term here?
Kindergarten, primary school? What do you? I don't know what
For
you say.
preschool.
Nursery.
Nursery school.
Yeah.
Is it? There's not a level above that. Nursery school.
Okay. Cool.
What?
Reception.
Huh.
Okay, I'll take it.
Okay.
All right. Good. So where this comes to us from is the world of human development, adult human development, right? And how humans, organizations, and whole societies evolve from one step to the next. Yeah.
This is the science. So Agile is mainly interested in the science of business agility. Mm-hmm. And there's lots of people. In fact, I think pretty much everybody on that list of classes that Simon has is more what I would call business agility. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. God bless them.
Yeah, very useful, very important.
Yeah, you got to do that kind of stuff. I'm just going to sign up for Don Reinertson. You got seats left for Don Reinertson?
Reinertson, I love him.
But we're human systems geeks because there's methodologies and technologies on the human system side, but most people don't know about it.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of science behind this stuff.
Yeah.
So this first, this is a level of complexity. There's 3 or 4 levels below this, back into prehistoric times. But about 2,000 years ago, this kind of a thinking paradigm arose, which is a very black and white, that the world is ordered in a certain kind of way and that there's an absolute capital T truth.
Mm-hmm. And if we find that truth, then it makes sense for us to create processes and procedures to have a repeatable way of pursuing that kind of excellence that we see towards fulfilling that truth.
And so we have standardized processes, and we have functional bureaucracies, and we have a strict hierarchy. And over what came before that, that's a really smart management paradigm. This works. This is what allows you to build big cathedrals and get big stuff done, organize lots of people, have armies that go, invade other countries. If that was I'm not sure.
Well, that was an innovation at the time.
Yeah,
I mean, really.
Kind of an innovation.
Right. So where this arose in business was about 100 years ago, a little more than 100 years ago, right? Or with the Industrial Revolution. Think factories, right? A factory worker does not go outside of their role. In fact, my grandfather worked in a factory. He worked in General Motors. He made cars, and he did the same exact job for 40 years. The same little thing for 40 years. And if he was sick, no big deal. Someone else would come in and do that same thing for that day that he was sick.
And if he's there for 10 years, he's going to get promoted. And if he's there for 15 years, he's going to get promoted again. And you get promoted because of your seniority, because of your loyalty to the organization's cause. And that's a good trade-off, that's a good deal in that way of thinking.
So there was a time that this level of organization matched the level of complexity of the world, and it worked just fine. Well,
It doesn't now.
Yep, because the world got more complex. And so as one of the responses to that complexity, this thing called Orange emerged, which is called achievement and results driven. It's very much about individual freedom. It's about the idea of, you know, I don't want to work my whole career just to maybe get a promotion. I have a good idea and my boss doesn't see that good idea. I need to be able to go around my boss, maybe go to my boss's boss, or maybe over here to this other department and see if they can listen to me and get this good idea done.
And I want to be judged by my results. And so this is what gave rise to R&D departments, research and development, what gave rise to a really strong innovation factor. And when you do that, when you get judged by your results, it naturally leads to accountability. You have to take accountability, where in Amber organization, you are not going to suffer consequences for doing what you were told. End of discussion. If you're insubordinate, that's a problem, but if you do what you're told, you're good. Here, it's not just a matter of doing what you're told, it's a matter of achieving the goals that you were set out to.
And excelling in some way, being the best. Being the best. And so we're really in Orange, people are chasing this idea of success. I'm going to achieve this success and I'm going to be happy. And for a while that can work.
So you see how that's more complex. It's maybe better or maybe not, but at least it's more complex. It's able to deal with more diversity, more difference, in a more competitive world.
And what often drives people and whole societies that are organized at Orange into this next level is that at Orange, relationships can become quite transactional. Kind of like, you know, I'll be your partner. This is when Orange talks about partnership, but you have to put it in air quotes. Like, I'll be your partner until it no longer serves me, and then I'll find another partner.
It's just business, it's not personal.
Yeah. So these are literally value systems, folks. Try to get your mind to think in each of these value systems, because there are people in your organizations whose center of gravity is at each of these. Right? So what happens is when people get tired of the rat race, tired of trying to pursue this success, tired of relationships being transactional, they move to the next level of complexity, which is called pluralistic or relationship driven, but green for short. Yeah.
And the thing about this is we live in a really diverse world, and we can't afford to not be able to tap into the smarts and resources of people that live in different cultures. And so we start to value diversity more, and we value not treading on other people's values, and listening to their point of view. And that leads us eventually to not having majority rule so much as we make decisions by consensus, because that's what maximizes the whole, or at least the team. The metaphor has moved from machine in Orange to family.
Now, it can take a long time for an individual human or an organization or a team, let's say, centered at green. It can take a long time for them to be able to move. You know, because they're busy getting consensus. They're busy hearing from each other. No one really wants to take leadership because we're all equal, right? When they do move, it's quite spectacular. But a lot of people don't get to that point because they sit around talking to each other. Right?
The innovations of this, and
you know this, right? Have you felt a team? Hey, who has felt a team at Green before? Like they just can't get off the dime. Yeah.
So recommend, you can't see it on the slide here, a book called Reinventing Organizations. How many people have heard of that book? Reinventing Organizations, quite a lot of you.
So we're talking about what you've already read.
Frederick Laloux.
Yep.
You know, this is where empowerment really comes in. Orange might talk about empowerment, but it only goes as far as the boss's control. If the boss feels threatened by the empowerment, in an Orange culture, that's not likely to actually succeed. You're not actually likely to let go. In Green, it's what we really believe.
Yes.
It's deeply what we believe.
These are literally values systems.
And so this is where you really have a values-driven culture. Not a poster on a wall that everybody knows is a joke. You know that one, right?
Those motivational posters or those statements of values or missions, and you look at them in the organizations and you think, oh my God.
This is such a lie.
Just kill me now, right? Right.
That's usually green looking at orange, that perspective.
Yeah. Hang on. So the last one that we're going to talk about, there are actually levels above this, but there are literally no human beings on the planet at the levels above this. So we're just going to talk about this one, which is Teal, which right now a very small percentage of human beings on the planet are sustainably at this level of complexity. It's what's emerging. Likely our children will get there a lot faster than we will because of the privilege that we've given them by being in the first world, basically.
Because you don't move up to this level of development without going through Maslow's hierarchy of needs, from physiological needs to esteem and belonging needs, to moving into needing to wanting to self-actualize, wanting to become the most full expression of yourself, wanting to hear the calling that you have for you, that the world wants something from you specifically.
Yeah, and it's your job to figure that out.
And you can't do that if you are struggling for food.
Yeah, right.
Just not a relevant game.
Right.
Can't
So
play that game.
at Teal is where this idea of the organization as a living system really comes fully online. Now, here's the deal. Agile thinking comes from, I would say, a green teal-ish kind of altitude. Yeah, you guys, would you kind of agree with that?
Does that make sense?
Yeah. And we're trying to bring it to organizations that are ambery, orangey, maybe greeny. Yeah?
And
Where you're like, no, down, lower, lower.
Where their business agility might be up in the green range, but their human systems agility is not.
Yeah. So let us show you how these elevations map to the Agile Manifesto. Because one of the first things to understand for us, when we come into an organization, is what's going on with the organization in terms of this.
Actually, let me give you a couple examples of practices from Teal organizations, just to ground that for you. So in a Teal organization, we don't worry about job titles very much.
Nope.
We might set our own salary. We might, many of them have what's called a decision
advice process.
Yeah, thank you. Advice process, where if I'm going to make a decision, and it doesn't have to do with my power in the organization, it has to do with I'm a member of the organization, I have a certain responsibility, and I'm entitled to make a decision on my own. But I have to consult with everybody in the organization that has a stake in that decision. So if I'm going to affect you, I've got to talk to you. I don't have to necessarily take your advice, but I have to hear the impact that you think that would have. And if you're worried about it or something, I have to think about that.
And because he is at a Teal level of elevation here, he would actually really hear what the person is saying. And he'd take it into account when he makes his decision. He doesn't necessarily have to go with it, but he has to mind his wake. Whatever impact he creates for other people, he would pay attention to that.
And team members do their own performance. They don't need a manager to do a performance evaluation.
Why would you need that?
So, by the way, they also have coaches who don't have management authority.
So this is a way that Agile is like, yeah, we've heard that. Like Agile's like a harbinger of the future. It's just not quite here yet.
Now, these are not organizations that are doing Agile software development. They just naturally evolved that way of working because that's the next cutting edge of human organization, is that kind of thinking.
Yeah.
So that's how different they are than I'm assuming that most of you can't imagine those kind of things happening in your organization. Is that true? They wouldn't work. They actually wouldn't work.
And in fact, some of you are sitting there thinking, God, that wouldn't work at all. But that's okay. That's just because you haven't seen it yet. It does work.
Okay, so that's how
Good
different
enough.
Teal is.
Yeah. Now let's check out how these things relate to the Agile Manifesto. So at Conformist Role Driven, we call that a tradition-driven Agile. You can absolutely do some limited form of Agile through some type of codified process or something a little more rigorous than you'd actually like.
Now, if you remember the Agile Manifesto, this is in reverse order.
Yeah, that's not a mistake. That actually is what this value system believes. Because think about it. If there's a capital T truth, and the world is actually quite black and white, then we do believe in comprehensive documentation over working software because we have the experts figure out how to do it, and all you people, all you need to do is follow what the experts say. Would you please fill out this template?
So if you're trying to implement Agile in a truly Amber organization, do you know this guy Sisyphus?
Yeah, he's rolling the boulder uphill, and then every day it rolls back down.
It's going to be kind of like that.
It's going to feel like that. Yeah. Now, some limited type of Kanban kind of matches this elevation. Not the kind of Kanban that wants to use the data to change the whole organization.
Not
No,
David Anderson's Kanban,
No. But some limited sort that has some kind of local optimization would be quite well tolerated by Amber. So now at Orange, we start to see parts of the manifesto coming online. Working software over comprehensive documentation. Yeah, baby, show me the money.
Because customers buy, they don't buy documentation, they buy software. So that's consistent with our values if we're thinking from Orange.
Right.
Great.
Now on the flip side, customer collaboration, yeah, maybe. Maybe. I mean, just as much as like we can get data from customers and figure out what to sell them. But in the end, we're running a business here. We don't, no. Customer collaboration over contract negotiation, not so much. Not so much. Orange cares about customers just as long as they keep buying, right? Because the bottom line measure of success in the world for Orange is more.
And remember, it's transactional, not personal.
Yeah, it's just
right?
business.
In green, we will be hurt if the customer is not happy.
Yeah.
I mean, really.
Because in green, a business strategy of customer intimacy actually makes sense. It's a valid strategy. And in green, we start to see other parts of the manifesto coming online.
Okay, so why are we talking about all this, you may ask?
Why are we talking about all this, Michael?
No, I was going to ask you that. Marcella, why are we talking about all this? No.
Right? She's like, what?
Well, in case I'm totally going down the wrong track. But if you don't know where your organization is coming from in this kind of way, now, and this is too simplistic, it's not just that an organization is one of these, but they're usually sandwiched between two of these or maybe centered in one. They're somewhere in there. They're not, yes, there's people that are all over the place, but the way the organization acts is centered in one or two of them. And it's
Here's what we
usually
say.
centered in one primarily and another one or two secondarily.
And here's how you can tell. When push comes to shove, what does the organization actually do? That's how you can tell where the center of gravity of that organization is. Yes, indeed, there might be green pockets of Agile teams all over the organization. But when push comes to shove, do they act from a green value set, or do they act from an orange value set, or somewhere in between?
So,
So that's what you're looking for.
So if I think I have this story right. When push came to shove at Southwest Airlines, are we going to lay people off, save money, or are we going to keep employees and figure out a way to work with us together? They said, we're going to figure out a way to work with us together.
And what Herb Kelleher did, the CEO of Southwest Airlines, is that he sent a memo to everyone in the company. He said, so here's the deal. We all have a business decision ahead of us. We can lay off 3,000 people, or you can all take a $100 pay cut every paycheck. What would you like to do? So they chose to take the $100 pay cut.
So that's when push comes to shove.
That's what a green organization will do, right? So a little different than most for-profit organizations. Most for-profit organizations are centered at orange, or at some point they have to kind of default back down to orange because that's how world markets judge them. Right?
So I'm gonna guess, just by the way I could feel that landing in this space, that this group is centered in green. Does that seem about right? Yeah, I mean, I'm sure you do orange kind of things and you work in orange organizations, but this group is centered in green.
Mm-hmm. Well, check it out. Let's just see what's true for people. So looking at this and seeing how the manifesto lines up with this, where do you live? Where do you personally live?
In organizational life.
Yeah.
Meaning what's your organization?
Coach without structure.
A coach without a structure. Yeah. So most people in the Agile world kind of resonate with these green Teal-y ideas, because that's where Agile came from. Yeah. Okay, so this is the first step of, believe it or not, developing an internal Agile coaching capability. Because doing it without this information could be misguided at the least and actually hurtful to the organization at the worst.
We're at 7:37.
Okay, good to know. So here's the bad news, is that for 9 years running, the version 1 survey has told us that these are the 2 top reasons why Agile does not move beyond the team level in most organizations.
Can't change organizational culture, resistance to change.
Has nothing to do with Agile. Really. It's just we need some skill sets outside the world of Agile to help this happen. Now, here's a new one. Last year, for the first time, not enough personnel with the necessary Agile experience became a top reason why Agile doesn't move successfully beyond the team level. That's fascinating to me. It's like as Agile has crossed the chasm, we literally don't know enough about what we're doing to do it well at all. Right? And so this is kind of good news for me, because I think if we could develop an internal Agile coaching capability with Agile coaches that have a much broader base of skills, then we can address these things. This is not futile. This is just an interesting challenge.
I'd say it's good news for everybody in the room. Seems like job security for
Yeah.
a while to me.
Yeah.
That's what that says to me.
And here's,
Can't get enough of you folks.
yeah. And so watch this video and check out the state of our skill level at Agile.
Chet Wrong here with the wrong way to do Agile. Today, planning. We'll start with a round of planning poker. If someone throws out an estimate that is different from the others, then remove that person immediately. If planning takes too long, then just have the product owner do all the planning. This will speed things up greatly. Feel free to restrain team members as needed. Once the product owner has assigned all tasks, then their work is done. They won't be needed until the next planning meeting. Now remember, this plan is only a suggestion, so be sure to add plenty of time at your next stand-up to add new items. And that's the wrong way to do planning.
So kind of funny, right? Here's the bad news. There's a bunch of these on YouTube. And they're only funny because they're kind of painful, right? Too much truth, yeah? Because we do have kind of crappy Agile being done kind of everywhere in it right now, right? Is that a little too much truth? Are you okay with that?
Trust us, we see it.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, we literally have people coming to our classes now. Our classes are intermediate level classes. And they can't express the Agile framework that they're using because they got some version of an Agile 101 in their big organization, and that's all the education they got, right? So this is what we're dealing with. This is the world we're in. And we have organizations saying that Agile is the #1 imperative for us to become a better organization, deliver all these marketplace results. There's a big disconnect. So, no wonder, right? Because think about it. Some of us have come from backgrounds where we actually know what these mean. And if you don't know what these mean, you are young and you are beautiful, and you don't ever need to know. Because all of these come from this machine model, right? That we can break things down into their component parts. We can tell people, you do this, you do this, you do this, and then we're going to put it together at the end. And it's going to be glorious. And of course, it never was, right? So no wonder that many people in levels of leadership in our organizations think, oh, Agile's just the next project management methodology. Cool, let's just take out our favorite SDLC and put in Scrum, or whatever it is we're putting in.
And let's just map our project managers to be Scrum Masters and our managers to be Agile Coaches, because obviously they're the same thing.
Right. So you see that from that belief system of the organization as a machine, that's perfectly reasonable.
It is.
It's logical, right? But here's the deal. We all know that Agile is not the next project management methodology. It's just not. It actually has a completely different belief system underneath it, running it, than the project management belief system.
Predict and control to sense and respond.
Yep. So what we're going to talk about is just one of these pillars. You like these pillars? Oh, come on. Give me some props for these pillars, people. Come on.
So is this,
Yeah, I mean, come on.
is this anywhere we know?
I think I'm going there on Saturday.
This may be a local attraction.
Yeah, yeah.
So, having an agile organization culture and structure is one whole component of things. That's
When you
way-
turn your head that
too
way,
big.
they can't hear you because your microphone's only on
Okay.
one side.
That's way too big to deal with.
Yeah.
Agile leadership, that's a whole set of things. And agile product excellence, how to do good product development and good technical development.
Yeah,
All of those are important.
yeah.
But we're going to focus on we're only going to focus on part of this one. We're only going to focus on one, Agile coaching capability, because of what I talked about before. You see, we're bringing in the next thing in terms of organizational consciousness and in terms of process. And the next thing is a different kind of a beast. It's a self-organized world. And a self-organized team world needs somebody who's outside of it, who's an advisor or a facilitator. That's why these groups that weren't implementing Agile, why they had coaches that didn't have management authority. They didn't have the ability to tell people what to do or to order them around or anything. But it's helpful sometimes when you're a team to get an outside perspective, isn't it? And to get somebody who's seen other teams do things, and for them to reflect back, here's what I see you guys doing. I don't know what you're going to decide, but I see you guys kind of going off the track in this way, or you're really getting caught up with each other. Or conversely, you've really progressed. You've developed your relationships with each other in a different way than the last time I met with you.
Yeah, yeah. So, if Agile isn't a project management methodology, I mean, the next question is really, what is it? Something akin to what Michael was talking about, an environment where that coaching makes sense. And so we don't really have a quick answer for you. We have a long-winded answer about what Agile is. A sense and respond approach to creating value. See how the end goal has completely moved? It's actually not about doing a repeatable process well. It's about, you guys know this, it's about delivering value. And in order to do that, we have to change our paradigm. Right. So to do this means dealing with something that we really don't want to deal with. Because the only thing Agile is guaranteed to deliver 100% of the time is impediments. Think about that.
What kind of joke is that? That seems to be a
It's actually its job.
serious mistake.
If you think about it, Agile's job is to reveal impediments. And these are the hard problems that organizations and managers and organizations are just confounded by. We'd rather just pretend that those aren't there, right? Because they're hard.
And they shine a certain spotlight on us, don't they? I mean, gosh, I don't like impediments when I think about it.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, I don't.
And yet, where we're going is that to use Agile well, we want to get to the place where everyone, all the way down and all the way up in the organization says, oh goody, impediments! Bring them on, let's go. Because if we were really interested in continuous improvement, if we were really interested in making our organizations a place where people could thrive and we could have useful product flow all the time, we would welcome impediments. We would just treat them as data. Oh, look at that. We're not very optimized over here. I wonder what's going on.
So think about it. Think about a really great leader that you worked for. How many people have worked for a great leader at some point? So did they want feedback or did they resist feedback?
They wanted it.
They wanted it, right?
They might not have been great at taking it, but they wanted it. I mean, there was a desire there to grow, right? Yeah, good.
So that's what impediments are, is their feedback about your organization or your department or your team.
So
and they're painful, kind of. They're not fun.
They are. And it takes a certain skill set and leaderfulness inside of us to be able to help people face impediments. And so that's the kind of skill set and leaderfulness that we need to grow in people who are doing this Agile coaching job in our organization, because this is the one job designed to not collude with the organization's limitations. Now, I'm sure they are colluding right now in many organizations, and that is a fault of what's going on. Right?
You put them into an organization structure where they report to the delivery manager, well, that's going to be a problem.
That's what you're going to
right
get,
there,
right?
It's
But the
already
way
going
it's,
to.
yeah, the way it's designed is that this role can be the hard truth teller, and do it in a way that they're not reviled. Do it in a way they're actually in partnership. So in order to build that kind of capability, we think there are 5 major things that organizations and managers in organizations need to be thinking about.
So if I'm a manager and I want to build a capability of, Agile Coach and Scrum Master, we don't make a big distinction between those two, quite honestly. That kind of function is the project manager of the 21st century. To create projects, you had to have project managers. I mean, that's the only way that system could have worked.
So that was an audit function in the 20th century.
And it was a control function, right? And it was a schedule master function.
Yeah.
And in the 21st century, we need Scrum Masters and Coaches, which is a non-power role. It's a process-oriented role. It's not a command and control role. It's a servant leadership role, because that's where we're emerging from an organizational point of view, from a process point of view, from a predict and control to a sense and respond world.
Right. So it's really important that management in organizations, and if you're a manager, be thinking about this, that you make a clear development path for people. Because right now it's kind of like anything goes with Agile coaching, right? So providing a clear development path, and at the same time that you're funding knowledge and skills training, supporting the reset of core beliefs. Because especially if you have put managers or project managers in the role of Scrum Master or Agile coaches, they need to be reprogrammed. Because I can tell you from personal experience, I needed to be reprogrammed, and I had really good mentors that helped me do that. So literally the core belief system has to be upgraded, right? So those two things together, and then providing ample practice and mentoring while funding a competency development program, because just learning this stuff in the classroom is insufficient. Almost everything we teach people in the classroom is really freaking hard to do when they get back in their organization, right? So there's some kind of competency development program that needs to go along with them hand in hand for quite a while. We talked about professional coaching taking months, right? Well, the same thing with Agile coaching. It needs to be months over a longer period of time where they can really build skill and get measured for their competency.
We did this, so we've been in this, as I said, for 5.5 years, and if you've heard about our training, I mean, this is what we hear from our students every single class. This changed my mind completely. Some people say, in most classes, somebody says, this changed my life.
Yeah.
Now that's really powerful training. It's really gratifying to give that kind of training. But that doesn't cut the mustard in the really long term for organizational change. It's not enough. It's enough to crack open a certain possibility. It's enough to shift their consciousness in a really serious way. But unless they have an ongoing practice, they're not going to be able to sustain it. They're not going to be able to deepen it. They're not going to be able to make it real because the organization is resisting what they're doing.
Push against them, right? Right.
So you've got to have ongoing development.
Yeah. So that's the big broad brushstrokes of the 5 major areas for developing this internal Agile coaching capability. And what we're going to focus on is just this first one. It's the most foundational or basic. You know, like, what is the development path? What are the steps? How do I know when a person is at this level versus this level of capability? So that's what we're going to be talking about next. And the good news is that there's been a lot of work done in the Agile industry to develop and to name a set of stepping stones in Agile coaching. And there's even a learning objectives pathway that you can go download. It happens to be on the icagile.com website right now, but it belongs to all of us. That pathway, those learning objectives in each of these 3 levels is Creative Commons. You're meant to suck it into your organization and use it as a starting baseline for what people should be able to know, do, and be at each of these 3 levels. So you've got a big leg up already. So we know that Agile Team Facilitator is just a generic name for Scrum Master or Kanban Lead or Iteration Manager. That's a person working with one or a few teams, and their focus is helping the team really leverage the practices and values of Agile to deliver great products. Right? Agile coach tends to be at the multi-team level. And at this point, the focus is on multi-team impediments, on developing great Scrum Masters and product owners and other roles, that sort of thing. Advising managers at this point. They have enough self-leadership and enough gravitas that managers will listen to them, right? And then there's like a huge leap between Agile Coach and Enterprise Agile Coach. It's not just a stepping stone, folks. It's like you're going to jump a big canyon. Because there's a lot more to know, do, and be to be an enterprise coach. At that level, you'd be able to come in and work with the CEO and her direct reports to help them understand what change they need to make to become Agile leaders now that they've brought Agile into the organization. Enterprise Agile coaches work end-to-end throughout the whole organization to lean out all those big, hairy business processes that right now stop a lot of teams. Right? So that's a whole different skill set and a lot of gravitas, a lot of leadership. You know? So we're going to focus on these two because that's plenty.
Can we have a design moment here?
Yeah.
We're at about our time point.
Wow. Okay.
And so we could renegotiate with them for a slightly longer time. We don't know what they're expecting.
Mm-hmm.
Or we could, and I'm sort of not inclined to go through these really quickly. What? So can I ask them?
Yeah. I'm getting some data
if we
here.
go until about 8:25, including question and answer, would that be all right?
Yeah.
All
Okay.
right.
And I'm thinking we need to provide people a moment where they can exit gracefully.
Does
You know,
anybody
I mean,
really need to leave at 8:15 or so?
Okay, all right, we don't need to then. Okay, great. All right, so we're going to bite these two off. And so at the Agile Team Facilitator level, what we're really about is just some really basic training, primarily in facilitation. Right? Because what we see, Michael and I train thousands of Agile coaches all over the world, and what we see when they come into our classes is that, they're in the middle of every single conversation. Every single conversation. They're like the hub, and the team members are like the spokes in the conversation. And then they wonder why the team members aren't empowered. Right? And so we need to just bring a little bit more of a skill set that allows them to step out of that hub role while still being quite involved, but at a very different level.
Well, and in their defense, their management expects them to do that.
Yes. Right.
That's why they get
Right.
driven that way,
Right,
and they don't have
because
the
that's the
skill
old
set to do
mindset.
otherwise.
That's the old mindset. So some training and ample practice with the mentor, and then some type of competency check.
So this is what creates a certain level of legitimacy to this role. It's like the equivalent of getting a PMP,
Only meaningful. Or Prince 2. Prince 2 is over here, right? Not PMI. Right. So, by the way, I still maintain my PMP. I don't know why. I guess I never want to take that test again. and all of my Agile credits go toward my PMI thing. So, it's a weird thing. Maybe I'll let go of it someday. I don't know when. So, some people will want to work at the multi-team level. Not everyone, because if we had better Scrum Masters and Kanban Leads, we would be in a lot better shape, right? And some people will want to work at the program level, and for them, they also need training, and training in many more skill sets, and we're going to be talking about those in a moment.
We also think, though, that we've learned, frankly, that they need a whole competency building program. When I took my coach training, my professional coach training, I took 15 days of professional coaching classes. That's a fair amount of training. Mm-hmm. And I wasn't trained. And then I took 10 more months of a certification program. And the certification program was where I became a professional coach. Mm-hmm. It wasn't in the training. That was a good start, but that wasn't enough. I needed the rigor and the practice of a competency building program to become a professional coach. Mm-hmm. So we think that Agile coaches need a similar kind of a thing. We've just done our first couple of experiments with it. And those folks, their competency level, because we do assessments of people against the IC Agile rubric of IC Agile Expert, and we see people come in just off the street, so to speak, after having taken the classes and practicing on their own. And we see people now come in through a competency building program. And the difference is,
Oh, it's amazing. Yeah. So whereas the person coming in, they're not really kind of off the street is in quotes here, person coming in off the street into this process to get assessed rarely make it through the assessment process the first time, because they realize there was a lot more to it, and then they go back for another 6 months or another 6 months after that, so it takes several times to come through. And if you're in a competency building program where you have to document a certain number of hours of each of the major skill sets, and you have to record yourself doing these skills and get assessed against a known set of competencies, well, then it becomes quite simple. There's a pathway that you can follow, just like I needed that pathway to follow in my professional coaching certification. So that's what that is. So ample practice along the way and another competency check. So let's talk about what happens at each of these levels and what you can reasonably expect as a manager in an organization in terms of what these people should be able to do and the results they should be able to deliver. Right? So there's a mindset shift and even a whole skill set shift for Agile team facilitators. Now remember, this is Scrum Master or Kanban Lead, someone working with one or a few teams. That big shift is going from running meetings to facilitating meetings, and really from running interactions, all kinds of interactions all sprint long, to facilitating interactions.
so most Scrum Masters we train are pretty good at running meetings.
Yeah.
They're efficient, they get things done, they drive to results. But helping a self-organized team become self-organizing and become empowered and stay out of the way, stay out of the content, that's a very different skill set.
And it's a very different level of leadership, internal self-leadership that's required to be able to do that. Because that role is very valuable, but it is inherently invisible.
You don't get all that much credit for it. You're not the smartest person in the room all of a sudden.
Because-
and they may be the smartest person in the room, and they got to give that up.
Right? Because being the smartest person in the room and being seen as a 20th century management paradigm, right? 21st century paradigm is we're all better together, right? So let's look and see what happens. So this is an Agile coaching competency framework. And at this level for Agile team facilitators, what they're really focusing on as the new skill set is the world of professional facilitation. They're filling up their facilitating toolbox and changing their mindset so that they can use it well.
Will you put up so I don't know if we've accentuated enough. You got to know this. It's not like we're minimizing that. We're taking it as a given. We're taking that that stuff as a given. The purpose of ceremonies, the output of ceremonies and so forth. We're assuming that. We teach that when we teach it, and it's codified in the learning objectives. So but that's pretty straightforward.
Well, and I think what we're seeing over time is that we've been assuming that, but as Agile has crossed the chasm and more organizations are doing it without a really compelling why, and the training people are getting is actually quite insufficient, we're finding people come into our classes now who really don't know the why behind the ceremonies. And so they're having to play catch up. Yeah. So, and they're having to deepen their knowledge of it. So what should an organization reasonably expect from these people operating at this Agile team facilitator level?
Well, people ask us this all the time. What's the
value of a coach?
Of a Scrum
Or the
Master,
Scrum
of a
Master,
coach?
right. What's the value?
What do they do?
Right.
What should they be judged on?
Right. So managers in an organization should be looking for these two things. That the team functioning is going to go up and their product flow is going to go up. And specifically how an Agile team facilitator does that is through these things.
Now, that doesn't necessarily mean velocity goes up, which is how an orange organization is going to want to interpret it.
Right.
Velocity goes up. Aren't people pushed to
Right.
increase velocity?
Right.
Is that true?
Yeah, what we want to increase instead, of course, you guys probably know this, is business value delivered, right? So there's just a couple on here I think we want to accentuate. When a Scrum Master starts to really facilitate, a couple amazing things happen. Team conversations happen faster and they happen with higher quality. More creative outcomes, more creative ideas going into a better product. All right, so you can reasonably expect that from someone who is skilled at this level. You can also reasonably expect improving team accountability and their commitment. Because the Scrum Master isn't taking the accountability on their own shoulders, which happens a lot right now. Instead, the Scrum Master is creating the space for people to disagree, to find their own fingerprint on the solution, and the Scrum Master calls the question. Okay, what are you all going to do?
The frame I like to put around this kind of whole thing to describe the food chain in an Agile world is that the organization hires the product owner to be accountable for the product. The product owner, in turn, this is not the way it actually is, but it's probably the way it should be. The product owner hires the team because the product owner believes that this team can fulfill their accountability, right? And I'm on the line for this, so I better believe in this team, not just be assigned it by IT, but actually I believe in them, and I should be able to fire them, or else how could I be accountable? And then the team, in turn, hires the Scrum Master.
To help them be a great team.
If you Scrum Master don't make us a better team over time, well then
you're out of here.
You're not adding value to us. That doesn't mean that doesn't mean I'm accountable for the velocity, for God's sakes. I'm not accountable for the product. The team is, and the product owner is. I'm accountable for the team getting better, as judged from a reasonably long-term perspective. Not we didn't like you this last sprint. You were a jerk, but over time.
Yeah. Now we know that's not the way it works, but that's actually how the logic of Agile frameworks is constructed. Right? So the more you can start thinking that way and start moving other people in your organization to think that way, the more you're going to be in line with how Agile is supposed to work. Right? So okay, that is Agile Team Facilitators. Now Agile Coaches have two primary shifts. Remember, we're at the level now of multi-teams, kind of a program level coach. First thing Agile Coaches need to do is recover from their problem-solving addiction. Now, recover from this addiction, folks, right? Because we are smart and we have definitely been rewarded for solving problems our entire career long, and inherently us solving problems for other people does not create capability in them for solving problems. Right? And so what we're at this for is a team and a set of people who can be much more capable over the long term, much more capable in dealing with the complex and confounding situations they find themselves in.
This is making sense.
Yeah. And so the other major Agile coach shift is consciously choosing what intervention they're going to make based on a much more holistic view of what's actually happening. So we teach Agile coaches models and ways of looking at their teams, at their program teams, at their Agile release trains, whatever they're doing. We teach them ways of looking that they've never considered before. Because what happens to most of us as adult humans is that we've got our normal way of looking, and we don't even realize that we're looking through a window. We think that what we're looking through is actually the whole picture. And we don't realize there's a window here, and a window here, and a window here. And oh my gosh, we're missing huge parts of the landscape. So seeing through a more holistic view and figuring out what are interventions through each of these windows and then choosing, that's the high leverage. And so that's what we go for with Agile coaches. Now in terms of this competency framework, an Agile coach is deepening their facilitation skill. They're starting to facilitate larger and larger groups. They're continuing to deepen their Agile Lean practitioner knowledge. No one ever gets off the hook of that one, right? But what they've added to the mix is professional coaching. And this is the skill set that helps people change. This is the skill set that lovingly and compassionately calls people on their shit, right? And helps them see how they're in their own way.
But not from a, you need to do this because I say it way, but in professional coaching, we don't have an agenda for the other person. We try to solicit their agenda, and we hold their agenda for them. And we facilitate a process so that they can be more of who they are. Not who of what we want them to be, but more of who they want them to be. You see how that's a Teal perspective? Because it's saying you are a self-actualizing person, or you have that possibility, and it's not my job to determine, that's above my pay grade to determine what your purpose is. That's your job. And I'll do my best to help you figure that out.
in addition to this side, which is kind of a process authority side, Agile coaches are deepening their skills in teaching and mentoring. Now, most Agile coaches are fairly good in one or both of these already. But they're typically doing it from a level of self-leadership that has their ego get in the way. And so what we want to see at this level is having Agile coaches being servers instead of fixers. Does that make any sense to you guys?
They're with us.
Yeah, good. Now, competent Agile coaches can do everything Agile team facilitators can do. Everything. There's not like a get out of jail free card. One of my biggest concerns is we're taking these program managers and organizations and we're saying, you're going to be an Agile coach and you're going to advise all of these teams, and they've actually never been on Agile teams.
And they've never been a Scrum Master.
What?
Huh?
I mean, now if this was the latest project management methodology, that would probably make sense. But since this isn't, that doesn't work so well. So I really want to see Agile coaches grow up through these ranks, right? The other thing that we should expect Agile coaches to be able to do in addition to that is increase the organization's overall Agile capability, at least in the area that they have some influence and scope over. And increase the overall product flow, so across a whole group of teams. Now, these are the different things, oops, that went too fast. These are the different things that happen, that they actually do to help that happen. You got a favorite you want to talk about here?
Yes. Systemically removing impediments. You want to do one now? I'd rather do that second.
Sure. The one I want to talk about is calling the organization into co-responsibility. What we see happening all the time is that Agile coaches get flung into a part of the organization with a message like, go make them Agile. Go do Agile to them.
Go install Agile there.
We had someone say, can you help us install the Agile? And I said, I think you have the wrong number. Yeah. So the idea of co-responsibility comes from professional coaching. It's the idea that we're in this together. And so what this means is that the Agile coach functioning at this competence level would be able to call the managers in this area into co-responsibility with them. That they would actually be running sprints of their own, and their backlog is the impediments coming out of the multiple teams. And that they would be very clear about which organizational impediments they're going after at any given time. And the coach is not left out there to do it on their own. The coach and the managers agree, okay, I'm going to do this, and you're going to do this, and you're going to do this. Hey, just like an Agile team, right? And managers are equally responsible for what happens just as much as the coaches. So calling the organization into co-responsibility.
Systemically removing impediments is the phrase hasten slowly comes to mind. We don't, if we're in a hurry to solve impediments, we're pretty likely to make a mistake. We're pretty likely to do so. Now, if the building's on fire, then you've got to react immediately. But usually, only somebody's mind is on fire, or somebody's ego is on fire, not actually the building. Mm-hmm. Those are different things. So sorting that out, taking a big picture view, using systems thinking, using a group to do a study process of what is our systemic impediments telling us. Mm-hmm. Collecting data from fairly big swath of the organization, not just my local kind of perspective or the manager whose hair's on fire perspective, mm-hmm. but from different stakeholders, people who don't care so much about it. What do they see? Mm-hmm. That's a different kind of a skill set, a different kind of a leader than is I can put out fires. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that's what you should expect an Agile coach to be able to do, is to think that kind of way.
Mm-hmm. Now, if the Agile coaches you're encountering in your role don't think that way yet, it's not surprising. This is just now starting to really come online. We now have training and competency development programs that weren't there a few years ago, right? So that we have lots of help. Okay. Now, in a group of Agile coaches, each Agile coach would have, be strong in these things. And then between them all, we want to see the group of them be strong in these things. These 3 areas of mastery.
So when we teach coaches, we say you ought to be strong in one of these. Both is great, but at least be in one. And in one of these so that you can do process side and content side things. And then we say, and choose one of these. You can't be good at all 3 of those. That's ridiculous. That's not what it means to be a master. That's what it means to be a consultant.
Oh, that was a low blow.
Choose a path of mastery.
Yeah. Because what an organization is going to need at any time is like more technical mastery and a little bit of business mastery. Ooh, now business mastery is the problem. We need more business mastery coaches. Oh, wow, we're in a world of hurt. We need more transformation coaches. Whatever, it's going to change over time. And the message we have for you all is that pairing is good for Agile coaches too. It's not just a technology team phenomenon. Yeah. So if, this is funny that technology is not working, because I'm just about to say if technology worked, I just tweeted you about 40 minutes ago a white paper that will give you much more information about everything we've talked about.
We've got about 12 minutes.
Well, this is perfect because we've got just a little bit more to do, and then we're going to. One of the things we want to share with you is what's happening for us, kind of hot off the presses. So what we're doing right now is that we are in organizations helping them strategize their internal Agile coaching capability. Like, how are we going to build the capability? When do we need coaches? How many? How's that going to match with the overall transformation? On and on, that sort of strategy. And what we're paying attention to is like, what are the overall patterns that we're seeing our clients use? And we hope to uncover 6 of these by the end of the year, or maybe even more, but we've uncovered 2 so far. And the first one is the pattern called a rising tide lifts all boats. We've had clients say to us, yeah, we don't know if the Agile transformation is actually going to work or not. We've done Agile and we've gone back, we've done Agile and we've gone back, but here's what we know. We know that developing these types of skills you're talking about as a coaching capability, that's really just a 21st century leader. So let's bring this into our organization and let's train a bunch of people up, because we know these are the skills we want people to have no matter what kind of method we're using for doing work. So that's the rising tide lifts all boats pattern. The next one is the starfish pattern. Did you guys know the starfish story? Little boy.
How many people know the starfish story?
A couple of you. I like this story. So there's a little boy walking on the beach. And there's an old man watching him kind of off in a distance, and the little boy is walking along and picking up objects and throwing them in the water, kind of like little boys do, not just throwing them in the water.
And there are hundreds and hundreds of starfish
all over the beach, washed up on the beach. And so the man approaches the little boy and he says, "Little boy, what are you doing?" And the little boy says, "I'm saving starfish." And the man says, "That's completely futile. Look, there are hundreds and hundreds of starfish all over the beach. What you're doing can't possibly matter." And the little boy thinks about that for a second. And he picks up a starfish and he throws it in the ocean and he says, "Mattered to that one." So what we're finding our clients say to us is, you know what? We've lost the Agile brand. There are too many teams in our organization doing Agile too poorly. We can't rescue them all. And we're just starting in our Agile coaching capability. We don't have enough coaches internally yet to match the number of teams that need coaching. So what we're going to do is we're going to look for starfish. We're going to look for starfish products or programs, like the ones that are really important, and we're going to match those up with starfish people, Scrum Masters and Agile coaches and product owners, and we're going to focus our efforts there.
We're not going to spread our coaching capability thinly across 50,000 teams. How many people are dealing with 50,000 teams or so?
I hope no one.
Like that,
I hope
right?
no one.
We're going to pick a couple, and we're going to get to done with them.
With them. It's kind of using Agile on ourselves in a certain way, right? Yeah. So that might be a strategy that works for some people, the throw starfish strategy. So this is what we were hoping to share with you tonight. And I think the primary message I want to leave you with before we solicit a few questions is that the work we're up to in Agile transformations is the essential work of evolution on the planet. If Agile is an emergent response to complexity and to the evolution of the human species, which I believe it is, then we're all involved in that. And so we need both human systems technology alongside our business technology for affecting that kind of change. And we have a lot of help. We can do it.
And the fact that you show up here for these kind of things is an indication that you are the leaders of the future. And you may be wanting the leaders in your organizations to lead, and they're not.
Did you hear that? They're not.
And you might be able to persuade them to, and you might not.
Mm-hmm.
You just might have to do it yourself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's a pretty good network for you to know.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
All right, enough seriousness. Let's have a Q&A.
So there's a question
Man,
right
man's
off.
got a mic there.
Thanks, Steve, for letting me let you pause on that question, yeah.
Yeah, you can hear me?
Yep.
So I was wondering about the different stages you had there. It looks like spiral dynamics, is that correct?
Yeah.
It's loosely speaking, yes.
Okay. And
It's
That's
very
one of,
similar
let's say
work.
it's one of the sources there, yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
I was wondering how integrated that is into your training in general.
From the very beginning. Yeah.
Well, I'm writing a book right now called Coaching the Agile Enterprise, and I'm reasonably close to done.
It's on videotape, folks. It is on videotape.
That book is going to be done from my point of view this year. There's no question about that. Or I will commit. Does somebody have a seppuku sword that they could lend me just in case as a backup? It's going to be out this. Well, it might not be out this year because I don't control the lead time in terms of the publisher, but it will be done by me. I hope before the Agile conference. But yes, the model that I've developed is called Integral Agile Transformation Framework, and it incorporates the integral model into the world of Agile development.
Really powerful stuff. We talked about the different windows people look through. It's based on the integral theory, including all quadrants, all levels. Yeah. Sounds like you know what that is, huh?
Well,
A little bit, huh? So run this back. We got a hand in the back.
And in the middle. There and right up here.
Yeah.
Hi. So I'm doing the IC Agile coaching course right now, so over 12 weeks. And you mentioned that it's not just about doing that course. You have to go and probably want to that journey of coaching in general.
Yeah.
Yeah, which I agree with.
Yeah.
But what I find is no one ever pins their colours to one particular style or group that's out there, because there's quite a few coaching, there's the Coaching Academy, there's the ICF, there's
Yeah.
Interactive.
Yeah.
So if I was to put you on the spot and you had to choose, which one out of all those coaching organisations and that halfway would you choose?
Are you talking about professional coaching or Agile coaching?
Well, professional coaching, yeah, to complement the Agile coaching.
So
So IC Agile is Agile coaching, not professional coaching, right?
Sure.
yeah, yeah,
It's also a journey of coaching to improve yourself.
yeah. Yeah. So for Agile coaching, I would say pursue a path that is accredited by IC Agile, because whatever training you get accredited by IC Agile is going to follow the learning objectives set by a group of industry experts of which we were part of, right? Now, Agile coaches use professional coaching like a spice, not like the main course, because you saw that professional coaching is one of 8 things, right? So for those of you who get bit by the professional coaching bug and you're like, yeah, I don't know if Agile coaching is going to be my thing for the rest of my life, but even if it is, I don't care. I love professional coaching. I want to go for that. Of course, he's making a good suggestion is to look and see what schools are accredited by the International Coach Federation. 2 schools that we can recommend because we've been through both of their curriculums and they're known to be some of the highest quality are the Coaches Training Institute, and
Which is coactive
which is
coaching.
coactive coaching you mentioned, and CRR Global, which teaches organization and relationship systems coaching. And that second one, we've been through both programs, and that second one is the one we're both certified in.
But there's plenty of good professional coaching
There are
programs.
72 professional coaching organizations out there that map to the ICF's competencies, International Coach Federation's competencies. The Coaches Training Institute,
Training Institute, which is thecoaches.com, and
CRR
Force
Global.
Organization Relationship System Coaching, CRRglobal.com.
Yeah.
The ICF is a professional body. It's not a coach training school,
Yeah.
so it's different. There's also something in Europe called the EMCC.
European Mentoring and Coaching Consortium.
I think.
Yeah.
And both of those are professional coach certification bodies that accredit schools to teach curriculums, and they accredit or certify individuals.
Okay.
So you can't take coach training directly from them. You take training from a certified body by them.
Yeah. Thank you for putting us on the spot. We love answering that question. What else?
Somebody over here.
Someone else.
Right here we got a mic.
Okay, great.
Yeah, thank you. I'm fascinated about organisations which may exist in a Teal level, whether they can transform themselves to be placed in that position or start off in there. I think it's going to be too difficult for most organisations. I think people's personal motivations, the siloed institutions that a lot of us are in, legacy thinking, and also the freedoms which are offered by, you mentioned the first world kind of environment that we're in. I think the probability that many organisations will get there is extremely low.
Agree.
Are there any existing organisations which you think are operating in that Teal space?
Yeah. Read Reinventing Organizations. It
By
documents
Frederick
them
Laloux.
quite in detail.
Yeah. But you've got a really impressive point there.
But and I completely agree with you that most organizations will not make. I mean, people want to go into organizations and they want to transform them from orange to teal. Not going to happen in your lifetime.
Have you noticed that teal is the new black? Like everyone wants teal.
But what is going to happen is that you're going to have to go out and start your own teal organization. If that's what you want to do, go start one.
And guess what? The people to start one with are right here in this room.
And if you're satisfied working in the kind of place you are and making incremental improvements to it, then you should do that. That's great. God bless you.
Yeah.
But if you're not happy with that, then you should go out and start your own organization, because a lot of research says that you're not going to get over the developmental level of the CEO and the board.
So both the CEO and the board have to be at the developmental level you are hoping to bring the organization to, and even then it's not guaranteed.
But look at Uber. Uber has destroyed, or is in the process of destroying, the taxi cab industry. And it's only a matter of time, whatever a taxi cab lobbyist might think, it's only a matter of time. And I have no idea if they're being run in a Teal way, but it's a Teal business model. And it's a crowdsourced business model, and it's going to, I mean, why would you ever take a taxi cab? The only reason that I take a taxi cab is because they won't allow them into the airport. There's only cabs there, so I take a cab. But I would never take anything but Uber, just because it's more convenient and it's cheaper.
Yeah.
So that business model is going to, so the Fortune 500, it's already on this decline. So the rate of change of people, of companies off the Fortune 500 has accelerated. If you look at the curve, it used to be, I don't know, every 70 years that, so much percent would go off, and now that's accelerated, it's gone up like that. And in the next 20 years, I would predict that most orange organizations will be undermined and will be obsolete.
Yeah.
Because when you get Uber kind of models coming into everywhere, they kick their ass. It's just, there's no contest.
Yeah. So really, I love this, what Lynn Twist, who wrote this beautiful book called The Soul of Money, she says, the very solemn work of our time is to hospice the death of old structures that no longer work.
So consider yourself a hospice worker. You're making the death pangs not so painful. You're giving palliative care.
And for those of you who can't be happy with that, you can't find your satisfaction in that, then move on. Move on. Move on with people in this room. Move on with like-minded people who want to build an organization that's purpose-driven, that's not ego-driven.
8:26.
4 more minutes.
You said 8:25, but
Good.
okay.
Oh, I'm sorry. In my mind, I was going to 8:30. Sorry. Go ahead.
It's just with the importance of coaching and looking at these long-term coaching certifications. I was having to think about this because we're looking at the tracks that Scrum Alliance do with certified team coaches.
Yeah.
They've split it now, certified team coach
They
and
have.
certified enterprise coach.
Yeah.
Yep.
It sounds like it's possibly creating a bit of a dangerous dynamic for coaches because you can now go to Scrum Alliance if you've got the right 3 credentials or three letters behind you can go for your CTC or your CEC. It's something that's a track I was considering. But I was thinking surely there's more to this professional coaching. It's worrying that you can just pay your $500, write your thesis and get interviewed and suddenly you're a team coach or an enterprise coach.
So I'm involved in all of the certifications. I'm a certified enterprise coach. I sit on the accreditation councils when we look at applications, and I'm involved with IC Agile and the IC Agile expert process. So what I would say about this is that both the certified team coach and certified enterprise coach certifications at Scrum Alliance have gotten a lot better in the last few years at trying to deduce people's actual level of competence. Yes, they are thesis-based. You're writing essays, and so they're trying to deduce that from essays. But what the certified team coach application has done, which I really admire, is they're asking you for your training lineage. They're saying, trace back for us where you are today and how you got there, what training you took and from whom, how it changed your mindset, what you learned. And so I think that through that, they're going to be able to get a little bit closer to something that it's definitely not competence-based because they're not testing that, but it's getting a little bit closer. And so, and also the certified enterprise coach one now has 2 different pieces. Actually, both of them have 2 different pieces. One is kind of like an initial intake piece that helps you figure out, like, am I really at this level or not? Because as you mentioned, there you have to write a thesis to apply, and so before you put the time in the thesis to apply, you get through this like initial, like, am I at this level or not kind of assessment. Now, I think competence-based certifications hold more weight. Well, and even if they don't, who cares? Because you're getting a level of competence that's going to serve you in your craft, right? And so that's why Michael and I are so gung-ho about the learning pathways that are Creative Commons. They're meant for all of you, that IC Agile is funding. IC Agile is funding the creation of those. And organizations like ours and others are being able to assess people's actual competence. To me, that's a more virtuous cycle. But both exist simultaneously. Yeah, Geeta.
I have a question.
Say it succinctly and I'll repeat it since people can't hear you.
Right here. Right
Or here we go, we're coming. And then just to let you guys know, we probably do need to let this one be the last one since we're already over our negotiated time with you. Yeah.
Thank you for letting me ask this question. I've read with interest the contents of your 3-day coaching course, and I've also heard the IC Agile course as having multiple weeks of lessons in them, that there is some kind of a rule that IC Agile courses have to be done over multiple weeks. Is that true? And if so, this 3-day coaching program, does it come under the IC Agile?
Yeah.
So back to that, remember the slide of the team coach, or the team facilitator and the coach. So there are learning objectives that are defined by IC Agile that we were part of, but it was an industry vetted and based program that said an Agile team facilitator needs to know these things and an Agile coach needs to know these things. And anybody can implement a class that fulfills those learning objectives. So we are called a member training organization, and we have a class that fulfills each of those. And so do other organizations have different classes that fulfill those in different ways. And so you're talking about a different way of fulfilling that, like a multi-week
spread out
process.
over time.
That was just a different learning format.
But there's not a rule from IC Agile that says it has to be over time.
There's a rule that says that after you take the team facilitator and coach training, you have to wait 6 months before you get assessed at competency that you are an IC Agile expert. but
So
not
that you
that the
practice.
classes have to take.
It's a compulsion to practice, basically.
Okay, thank
Yeah,
you.
yeah, yeah, good. So thank you all. Thank you.